everybody. Hi, everybody. It's Alicia from the River Street Art Project. First, I want to start off by saying that the River Street Art Project as a project and personally, that we are strongly opposed to all the brutality that is imposed on Black people here in America. And we fully support the protesters, anybody who's out in the streets right now, and going forward, we'll be dropping links in our social media on how you can support people in the short term and in longer term for different policies. But welcome, thank you for joining us. Let's see, we're at the River Street Art Project. I'm Alicia Canary. This is my wife, Kristin Graves, who'll be talking to you tonight. We run the River Street Art Project. It's a gallery space that's co-located with Christopher Cutt's Barbershop right here. As a project, we support artists who have a social justice component to their art. One of the things that we do in addition, when we have our own shows here in the gallery, we also run Jane's Walks for the city of North Adams. It's a series of free citizen-led walking tours. Anybody can do it. We run it here for North Adams. It's an international walking festival. It's taking place virtually this year all over the globe. We'll also have information on that in our social media and all over. So we do that, and we have, I think this is our third project here at the space, and I'm excited to introduce to you Kristin Graves to talk about her project.
Hi everybody, I'm Kristin Graves, as Alicia said. I'm happy to have this exhibit here. This is my first exhibit like this. And what I've done here is, we live in a small neighborhood of North Adams, Massachusetts, which itself is the smallest city in Massachusetts. And I looked at the options, the places, locations where you could buy food, both in the past, going back to the 1880s, up to the present, defining food very liberally. So it could be a market, it could be a liquor store, it could be a restaurant, it could be a butcher, coffee shop, what have you. I found a total of 61 different locations that sold food, but most of those locations had more than one business over the years that sold food, and I'll be giving examples of that as we get into this.
Oh, I also wanted to mention, if you have any questions, just go ahead and drop them in the comments, and then when we have a good break, I'll ask those questions. And if we don't get to them while we're doing this live, then we'll answer your questions as we can.
Right.
Here we go.
So, I first got started on this about a year ago, when in North Adams there was a festival called O Positive. The idea of that was that healthcare and other caring professions were going to treat artists, visual artists and spoken word artists, musicians, in exchange for some kind of performance. So the city, the O Positive people, were looking for cultural things that could be used. So I wanted to do some kind of walking tour, and since it was supposed to be health related, I chose food. So I started researching how to, where food had been sold, what kind of food was sold, when was it sold, and I did do a walk last year, gave it twice, and now I decided to keep going with that and to see how many more places I could find, because it seemed like what I had was incomplete. So I've now completed it. So let's see, should we look at well, let me talk about the sources where I got the information first. So one main source of the physical locations was the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps. So these were maps that were made by the Sanborn Insurance Company. I got them online from the Berkshire Athenaeum in Pittsfield. And they had maps maybe every 10 or 15 years. I found maps and they would tell what was at the location and give an address and that sort of thing. So that was very helpful. City directories. I had city directories of North Adams that I got both online and at the North Adams Public Library. Librarians there in the reference area are very helpful. I also got information from the North Adams Historical Society, especially Jean and Justina Carlson, thank you. Paul Marino, as a local historian, was extremely helpful, and a lot of the photos that are here are ones that came from his website. Joe Manning is another local historian. I haven't actually had the opportunity to meet him, but his website, Mornings on Maple Street, was very helpful.
Some of the information came from our neighbors.
Yes, I actually spoke to people, which is not what I normally do. But yes, our neighbors, newspaper articles, all kinds of other sources. Yes, so thank you to everybody who contributed. Perhaps not even realizing you were contributing. So should I talk about the map? Is that the pièce de résistance here?
Yeah, you want a good view of it? How would you like it viewed? Up far? Up close?
Well, let's start far.
How do you guys want to see it?
Yeah, I want to see it. Okay.
So we'll start close.
So this is the neighborhood. The blue here that I'm showing, this is the Hoosic River. So this is food options. Our neighborhood is the neighborhood that's north of the Hoosic River. Okay.
So most of downtown North Adams would be where?
Is south of the Hoosic River.
Would be this blank spot.
This blank spot.
Okay.
I didn't care about them. I cared about north of the Hoosic River. And I should talk about why that's important. So
why is that important to you?
A couple years ago, well, more than a couple now, I went back to school and got a master's degree in geography. And to me,
Why did you study geography?
I studied geography because my wife got a bachelor's degree in geography, and I found out I was more interested in it than she was.
No, that's unfair. She really liked geography. You like different parts of it.
I like different parts. That's true.
Yeah.
So one of the things,
Aspects.
an interesting aspect of geography is the idea of a permeable barrier. So something like a river. So there's a river, there's a lot of streets here, but only a few of the streets cross the river, okay? So people on the north side of the river it's easier to stay on the north side. The idea of the permeable barriers, you can cross it, but people tend not to. Not as frequently as they would try to do things on their own side of the river. So that made the idea that there would be food options for all of the people who live north of the river. There would be food here for them, especially at the time when people were walking everywhere, before cars were popular.
Yeah. Are there any permeable barriers still around here in North Adams?
Well, in addition to the river, yes. If you down Marshall Street, some people may be aware of the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art located here in North Adams. Just about 2 blocks from where we are right now. That would be located right here. And there's walking from Mass-MoCa to downtown, which is further south, there is an overpass on the Route 2, which goes from Boston west. So the overpass, because it's dark underneath, that tends to be another permeable barrier. You can easily walk under it, but people from Mass-MoCa tend not to so much walk under it. And that's one of the things that North Adams as a city is struggling with right now, is trying to figure out how to get people to cross that permeable barrier. How to make it more permeable.
We do have a question from one of your
many admirers.
Your many admirers.
Yes.
This is from a Smith Ken.
Okay.
I believe there's no picture.
Okay.
And the question is Hoosic, he spelled it incorrectly though, it's Hoosic. Sorry, Ken.
Sorry.
Is Hoosic an American Indian name or some other ethnicity? People need to know.
Yes. Hoosic is a Native American word. It is spelled differently. There's a Hoosic Falls in New York, not too far from here. That's spelled with a CK. Sometimes you'll see Hoosic with the Hoosic Tunnel, which leads to North Adams, is spelled with an A. So it is spelled differently, of course, because Native American languages don't translate readily into English spelling and phonetics.
As much
So
as
yes, thank you for that question, Smith Ken. Okay, so let's look at the map. So we've talked about the river. We are actually located right here. Okay, that's where we're standing, in this building, number 44, right here, right by the river. The river runs right behind us.
A river runs through it?
The river does not run through it. These are shown going down. Okay, so 44 identifies one of the 61 locations. All right. The symbols here identify the different types of businesses that were at this location. So a restaurant was here, a pizza parlor. That was the most recent thing that was in this space. This represents a variety store, and this represents a grocery store. Those were all in this location, in this building. Okay? So there could have been, not here, but there could have been more than one variety store or more than one grocery store at a location, but on the map I didn't represent all of that. There is a book that I'll show you a little later where you can actually see the names of all the stores and the dates and so forth that they were there.
Were there other types of businesses at any of these places?
So there were 13 different business types here.
That you looked at?
That I found. So there was bakery, bottling and soda, butcher, confections, dairy, food bank, grocery, ice, liquor, restaurant, tea and coffee, variety, and warehouse. So the red, you saw that there were some red, here's an example of the red dot versus a green dot. So a red dot means that whatever was there is not there anymore. It's closed and it's something else now. The green is what's still open now. So there's 61 locations, but only, I believe it's 8 of those 61 have anything operating there now. And 4 of those 8 are food banks. Okay, in addition to the food bank, there's a little market, a bodega type market. There's a liquor store. There's a pizza parlor, Domino's, and a tea and coffee shop that just opened this year.
Just tea.
I'm sorry, just tea. No coffee, unfortunately for me, because I don't care for tea. But.
I think you like their Dragon Ball teas. They're very sweet.
Very sweet, yes. So these show all up. So up here there was a grocery store way up here. This goes up a big hill as you go north. This moves into the mountains that surround the city of North Adams. So this first 2 blocks maybe next to the river are pretty flat, but then it gets quite hilly from there. So any other questions about the map? I did want to talk about why. So you asked if the river ran through it here. Okay, the river does not run through this here, here, or here. But sometimes because of the crowding with the locations, it was hard to fit in the symbols. So I put them going down the river instead of some other direction.
What's that big circle?
This is where the hospital used to be. It was closed maybe 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. There's some medical facility there now, but it's
like
not
urgent care.
Yeah, urgent care, but it's not a hospital. That's why it's called Hospital Avenue.
We do have another question.
Yes.
From the same admirer.
Oh.
Smith Ken. But this is, how has the population in Hoosic changed over time relative to the changes in food establishments? Again, people need to know. Kathleen Zick.
Okay, Kathleen Zick and Smith Ken. Okay, we're talking about the change in North Adams, not in the town of Hoosic. First of all, the Hoosic is the river. Hoosic River. Okay.
More specific, it's the North Branch.
The North Branch. This is where the South Branch, which is the main branch of the Hoosic River, comes in. But I digress. So the population here peaked in roughly 1940s. The town started because there was the water, the two rivers, so it made it an ideal location for mills of various types. So grain mills, there were a bunch of fabric mills, both fabric printing and fabric making. There were shoes made here. A lot of those things over the years, the same mill would even have different occupants making different things at different times, which of course another thing that I can't wait to explore. But anyway, by the 1940s, the main manufacturer was electronics, and that was in the facility that is now occupied by the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art, the largest contemporary art museum in the country, by the way. So the population started to drop when the electronics manufacturing moved to China in the 1980s. In fact, Alicia's brother was offered a job working for Sprague here in the 80s.
The population started to drop when the fabric manufacturing moved south.
Yes, that's true.
And then it continued to drop. It held steady until the 80s, and then it has been decreasing.
Right. The fabrics moved down to like South Carolina, North Carolina, that area. Right. So now the population is nowhere near what it has been. So obviously that's one reason why all these stores have closed. The other reason has to do with just the way that shopping has changed in the country more generally, both being consolidated into like groceries, for example, as opposed to being individual stores for a butcher and confections and whatever. Everything's now at the supermarket or the big box store. And people have cars, so they can go further. People order online. So there's all kinds of reasons why stuff would change. And the leaving of all the mills is one reason why there's 4 food pantries here now.
We do have another question.
Yes.
From a Jan Papalardo.
Yes.
Who wants to know, did any of the food/libation establishments include a bowling alley or music venue?
I love the word libation. Thank you for that. I had not seen anything about a bowling alley on this side of the river. There were bowling alleys in town, but I don't remember running across a bowling alley here. And what was the second thing?
Or music venues.
Music venue.
Well,
there were several bars. Whether they had music or not, I don't know for sure.
I do know in this very building, right here, for a short period of time, this was a pizza place, I believe, in the 70s.
Restaurant.
Yeah, that was a restaurant. It was a pizza place in the 70s, and they had a jukebox.
Okay.
And we did talk to one of our neighbors who received her first kiss here at that pizza place. She remembers what was playing. She has no idea who it was, but it was it should be marked. Song. I believe it should be marked with a plaque.
Okay. Well, we'll get on that right away.
Oh, and you have another question.
Yes.
Do you mind if I interrupt you with questions? Okay.
Please.
Reyes Falcone.
Yes.
With so few food choices currently open, where do residents of North Adams currently purchase their food?
That's a great question.
I think that's a wonderful.
Okay, so I talked about the Museum of Modern Contemporary Art being here. Right behind us, across the river, behind, right about where it says river here, there is a supermarket, the Big Y, which is a Massachusetts Northeast-based chain. So that's where people get their food. The other place that I think most people go to, there's a Walmart in North Adams that people go to. There's also a
Stop and
Shop towards Williamstown,
West side of town,
which is west this way from here. So, but a lot of people actually go to the little bodega market that's right on the corner next door to us here. He does a pretty good business, mostly lottery tickets and cigarettes, but he has other stuff as well.
and snacks and drinks.
Snacks and drinks, yeah. Yep. Okay, so
those are excellent questions.
Why don't I talk about the book?
A book?
We have a book.
Wow.
So we can't have this in the barber shop because of the COVID restrictions. Barbers are not allowed to. We're allowed to open up in Massachusetts, but they're not allowed to have printed material. So this is not actually in here all the time.
Wow. Could anybody online be able? How can people actually access that information?
Well, you'll get to see what the kind of information we have in a minute, but. If you go to the River Street Art Project website, which is at
it's in the, if you're on Instagram, it's in the link is in the profile, and if you're on Facebook, the link is also there in one of the posts. And I believe to the post of this event there is a link to the website for this exhibit.
So if you go to current exhibits, you will see, among other things, you will see a little 10-minute video that takes all the locations, so street by street. So on Bracewell Avenue, for example, there was a grocery store, okay? It was at 130 Bracewell. It's not there anymore. That's the red circle, shows it's gone. Here's one of the Sanborn maps I was talking about. So here's Bracewell Avenue, North Holden Street, and this was where the grocery store was located. Show another there was only the one there on Brooklyn Street, 121 Brooklyn Street, John Toomey Milk was in that building. And here's the Sanborn map that shows where that was. And almost directly across the street on Brooklyn, this was the Cardamino's grocery store. You can kind of see, it doesn't look like a typical residence. It looks like something was there. That's another thing, just walking around town, we notice buildings that look, gee, that looks like something might have been there. It doesn't just look like a house. So this is, as you can see, I'm just going to flip through. This goes on and on for 200 pages. So there's a 10-minute video which has all this. You can see it on the website. It's also, if you pan, don't make people nauseous now, but if you pan to the window, so it's dark here.
Ooh. So if you're in North Adams, you can drive by.
So this book is being projected onto the window, and you can see it after dark. Okay, so
you have another question from your adoring fans.
Yes.
This is from a Alicia Graves.
Yes, a relative of mine, no doubt.
No doubt. Are there any food co-ops in neighboring towns?
Yes, there is not a food co-op in North Adams at all, but there is one in Williamstown called Wild Oats. Is that right? Wild Oats, right on Route 2, directly west. We go there periodically. We're members. Thank you for that question. Okay, so the other thing I want to show is the list of stores. So I showed you the picture of the Bracewell Avenue store before. So here's the map ID number, so that corresponds to the map. And there is a photo of the map on the website. has the address. Here's the name of the person who ran the store, F.A. Wilder. It was a grocery store, and this is the approximate decades that it was active, the 1890s to 1900s. If we go to, well, let's look at Eagle Street. So Eagle Street, so here's an example, 149 to 155 Eagle. So there were three different things there. Neville's Donut Shop was there in the 1950s to the 80s.
Neville's Donuts was very popular.
Very popular here. The Eagle Cash Grocery.
I'm really sad we missed out on Neville's Donuts.
I love
because
donuts.
They sounded like they were delicious.
Yeah. Eagle Cash Grocery was there from the 30s into the 60s. And the Dragonwell Tea Shop opened this year.
He's actually been open for 2 months now.
Yeah.
He opened, he planned to open and opened online for online deliveries in the middle of the COVID shutdown.
Right.
So, go well.
So this is an example where at the 160 Eagle Street, there were several groceries and one variety store at different time frames. So this is street by street. I have this list. Then, and anybody who knows me will understand completely why I had to make 3 different lists of these.
You do have a comment of, Neville's Donuts. And, another question.
Yes.
Do you mind if I interrupt you for a
please.
question? Yeah, so Smith Ken asks on Facebook, what has been your reception by the locals of a relative newcomer doing this research of their town, and now your town?
That's a good question, Smith Ken. I have not experienced any resentment or anything. The people that, Paul Marino, the local historian that I mentioned earlier, we've met with him several times. He's given us personal tours of the town. He told me I was welcome to use any photos I wanted off of his website. I mean, it was more than helpful. The Historical Society folks have been very helpful. I think they're...
Gina and Justine?
Gina and Justina. I think I interpret this as they're glad that people are taking an interest in the town.
Yeah, I have to say everyone in North Adams has been just wonderful. Whether it's for this research Kristin was doing or for our Jane's Walks, sometimes we've had, it's a Jane's Walk, so sometimes we had 3 people, sometimes 1 people, sometimes 20 people, and sometimes 13, and everyone was so excited to talk about their town.
Yeah.
So it's really wonderful.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's a lot of love for donuts right now online. I fully support that. Yeah. In fact, if you come to North Adams, there is a new donut place. Well, actually, it's a main place, but you can get donuts now on Sundays at AOK Barbecues.
We have not tried those yet.
No. You have to order online or they sell out, but I hear they're yummy and they look delicious.
Okay.
Lisa Graves, I know you're especially affectionate about donuts. I believe they're jelly filled.
Okay.
Just saying. Okay.
All right. So this is an index, all the businesses by map ID number. So map ID number 1, if we go look at the map, is right here at this location. So that was a grocery store in the 1890s. For this particular one, I don't have a name for that grocery store because I just found it on the Sanborn map. I was unable to find it in the city directory or any place else that gave me a name.
Well, one thing that they kept, if anybody knows what that grocery store is, and it could happen because, we share the space with a barbershop. And when you're in the barbershop... I'm sorry if I got anyone sick. So if you're in the barbershop getting your hair cut and you're looking at the exhibit, this loveliness, and you notice that we don't have a name for something, we'd love to hear about it, or if we're missing something. Again, these are not all the businesses that were on this side of the river. These are only food-related ones.
Right.
But if your favorite butcher you know, is missing, we want to know because we want to add that little piggy.
That's
right
right.
there. Oh, sorry, right there.
Okay, and finally, I have an index by name. So this is if somebody's in the barber shop and...
Or, you know, just coming to the River Street Art Project when, you know, all the restrictions have been lifted.
Yeah, and all these lists are online as well. So for example, our mayor, Tom Bernard, maybe is related to this Bernard.
Ooh, maybe.
Okay, because there was a Donay and Bernard who had a grocery store on Houghton Street, the 1900s to the 1940s. I don't know if this is related to our mayor, but could well be.
Could be real news.
Yeah. Maybe it's fake news, maybe it's real news, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think we're making it up, but we know it was a building.
Yeah. So, that's it, what's in the book. Then, in addition, we do have, this will be here when
the restrictions again are
when the
lifted.
restrictions are lifted, and we can put paper in here again. I have a place for people to write down stuff that they remember about, if they remember a location or somebody, like for one thing, when I posted, did a little walk a couple weeks ago, and somebody commented that that Little's was a grocery store. Little's Auto Body Shop, which is 2 doors down, was a grocery store at one time. I had not found that out. It's not on my map. So that would be the 62nd location. Whoa. Okay, so let's talk about the other exhibits that I have
And
here.
again, if anybody's watching and you have information that we should be adding in, you can drop it in the comments here. You can send us a direct message. You can leave a message on our website or any of our social medias, and we'll answer it and add into it.
Right. And the last part of the exhibit are these wall hangings here. So I've got 6 of them covering different aspects of my research. So this one just talks about how reliable are old maps. So these are 2 different Sanborn maps from 2 different years, 1908 and 1946.
Oh, 1908.
1908 on the left, 1946 on the right. Okay, and if you notice in the 1908 map, the front of this little building, which was I believe it was a grocery store, is pretty much flush with the front of this building next door, right? This is a porch. The dashed lines indicate a porch. Okay, now if you go to the 1946 map, you see that now this little building sticks out further than the house next door. So does that mean that this is a different building than in 1906 when it was also a store? Or does it mean that the map just got better? This is a picture of the location now. So here's the house with the wraparound porch. Okay, here's a little building. I don't know if this is this building, either building or a third building. I don't know. So Alicia suggested I could have just knocked on the door and asked, which I...
Well, you were doing your research pre-apocalypse.
Yes,
so
I was doing
that.
that
Would have been that might have been welcome.
I could have, but I didn't, because I don't talk to people.
I prefer. You are talking to your public right now.
I prefer,
and they love you.
I prefer going to the library and looking things up.
Well, we do like library. We love libraries too, and librarians. We're very
Can
fond
you see this one?
of librarians. Yep.
Okay, so this is an example of one building that had many different uses. Okay, it was built in 1901. It's been a bakery, it's been a grocery store, it's been a barber shop, it's been a variety store, it's been another grocery store, then it was a soup kitchen, and it was recently purchased by the Porches Inn, which is a fancy inn down the street, very nice, right directly across the river from Mass MoCA, and they are renovating the building. I'm not sure what they're planning on doing to it. So that's just an example of that. It had a very ornate soda fountain in 1896. And that was there into the 1970s, I think. But I suspect that it's gone now. Okay, we looked at that one. We walked past the map again. And the next thing is that some buildings no longer exist. Okay, so we are actually in this building right here, the Orchid, Christopher's Cuts, that's the barber shop, and River Street Art Project. Next door to us is the little bodega market that we've talked about.
Oh, I do want to mention the Orchid is the hair salon right in the shop next door in the same building. It's the longest continuously running business in North Adams. It's been at many different locations, but it's been running for over 100 years, and that's per what I've read. I could be wrong, but anyway, that's the story I'm sticking with.
Okay, so across the street from the corner market, this building is still there. This building is there. But these two buildings, these little tiny things, were both stores, the S for store. Neither of these buildings is here now. Now, this Sun Cleaners building is really small. This thing couldn't have been more than 15 feet long. These maps did not have a scale, so that makes it a little hard, but it was interesting. I did a tour, a walking tour. Jane's Walk. It's also on our website.
Yeah, because it was this year, so it was a virtual Jane's Walk. So if you want to see it, you can go to our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And check it out. You can come on the walks with us.
So I had a walk that talked about this building, and this building, and the corner market. That talked about that. Okay. Next.
Someone is saying you must be related to engineers. Someone with a similar last name to yours. Very similar.
I am related to engineers. My father was an engineer and my grandfather was an engineer. And my grandmother dated a mining engineer. Yeah. Possibly he was my grandfather. I don't know.
And you're also getting another comment from Smith Ken that crowdsourcing data, we love it.
I think Smith Ken does love crowdsourcing data. I won't go into that. Okay, moving on. So sometimes there's conflicting information. Okay, we gave kind of a mini example with that map over there with the building. You're not sure quite where it lies. But this building here has a couple different things that are conflicting. For example, the Massachusetts Cultural Resource Information System, which was a very good source of information for certain historical buildings in town, says it was built in 1884, but the city assessor says it was built in 1870. Who knows? Okay, I don't know anybody who was around then to ask that. There was also some conflicting information about when the North Adams Public Library was here. I know it was here for about 40 years, and I know it closed in 1976, which means that it might have opened around 1936, but I also know that there was a confectionery here at this building in the 1940s. So were they in the same building at the same time, or did the library really open later than 1936? I don't know. In 2019, there was a big fire, and this building was pretty much destroyed.
Displacing quite a few families.
Yes, it had been all converted to apartments by that time.
Yeah. We have another question from Smith Ken.
Yes.
Have you looked at the historic censuses to see who is living in these places and what they did and where they were born? People really need to know.
I did not go to the census data. I did go to the city directory, which has both residential and business listings. So, and then the Massachusetts Cultural Information System does have information about where people were born and that sort of thing, which would come from the census. That is a good way to get additional information. Since I was focused on businesses rather than food rather than people, rather than the residents themselves. Residents I did not go for the census.
But on some of our other Jane's walks that we've done in the neighborhood, the census was utilized.
Yes. Okay, here we have a brief history of food shopping then and now. So it's starting with the late 1800s to early 1900s, where you shopped at separate small stores for each type of food, like we mentioned. In addition, you would tell the person behind the counter what you wanted, and they picked it out for you. 1916, the first self-service grocery store opened in North Carolina. That was the first time that you could pick out what you wanted, browsing the store's shelves yourself. Then, chain stores obviously became more and more popular. Big box stores came in, so you've got a little more limited selection, but you've got maybe lower prices. Then online ordering starts. And so now you're kind of going back to like something like Instacart, where you tell the computer, what you want, and somebody picks it out for you. It's back to what we were in the late 1800s. So, and especially now with COVID, more and more people are ordering online. So that's kind of an interesting circle of stuff. We have one more back here by the trash can. Okay, so this is one of the oldest homes in North Adams. It was built about 1800. It was built as a private home, but they added a storefront and a porch later on. So I just had this. This was interesting because it was so old, such an old building. This is what it looks like now, kind of overgrown. But this is what it looked like in the 70s. So that's that.
Do you remember what kind of shop was in there?
Grocery store.
Oh, it was a grocery store.
That was a grocery store. All right. Oops. So, any more questions?
I don't know. Let me look at your public's comments. I do not see any other comments. There is Alicia Graves, I believe, wanted to know if there were barbecued flavored donuts at the barbecue. I believe it's a filled berry type.
Well,
donut.
That's disappointing because I would like nothing better than a donut with some sauce flavored glaze on it. I think that would be awesome.
But there is Lisa Graves asked, during what time period were there the most markets?
Whoa, specifically markets?
Specifically markets, Lisa?
Or food purveyors
any food.
and food and libation purveyors.
I don't know. We'll ask that.
Okay, I'm going to answer There were a lot of markets. Markets and variety stores were the two, groceries and variety stores were the two most popular types of stores. I do know that much. I don't know offhand because I did not make a list that is sorted solely by date. That would be another list to make, and then I would know the answer to that question. I would venture that it would maxed out at the time in the 1930s and 40s, so when the population was peaking, but before cars became so pervasive that people would be driving, further away to get stuff. People would, when they were still primarily walking. So I would guess the 30s and 40s, but I don't know for sure. Sorry, Lisa.
There is a Laura Whitbeck who wants to know, where are you right now?
I am in North Adams, Massachusetts, which is the smallest city in Massachusetts, and it's located in the far northwestern corner of Massachusetts. So Vermont is about
blocks.
Vermont is just off the map.
Yeah.
Like this is Vermont here. So we're that close to Vermont. The New York state line is
20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes to the west of us. So we're pretty far. The only town that's more in the northwest corner is Williamstown, where Williams College is located.
You have another comment from another fan, Jan Papalardo.
Yes.
This was great. What is your next research question?
That's a great question, Jan.
You should think about it over a Manhattan.
Yes, I'm going to have a Manhattan and think about it, hopefully with you. Actually, I'm thinking of the mills, the locations of all the different mills that were here and what they did. A similar kind of thing, but based on mills, what they made, when they were here, where they were located.
And a little more infrastructure too, like where the raceways were.
Yeah.
For the mills, not car raceways.
Right. So I did do last summer. We did a Jane's Walk along the south branch of the Hoosic River, which is this branch that comes in here. And we just walked along to see, because the river behind us, even though it looks like a nicely flowing river here, is in a concrete chute as a flood control measure, as is much the river going through much of, not all, but much of North Adams. So we did a walk showing parts of the river that were not in a chute and parts that are in a chute. And so I'd like to complete that walk. I'd like to put some of this stuff online. The research I have done, this is all online now, all of this stuff. But I think the mills is my next project. But I'm open to suggestions.
Yeah, suggestions. Hey, I think your fans love making suggestions. Alicia Graves says, ice cream bet. I believe in regards to, since you made a definite proclamation over the number of food establishments and markets being in the 40s, she would like you to put it maybe, because Reyes Falcone also said, really interesting history of your town. Databases would help you sort your data quickly. So if you had a database, we could answer that right now have an answer that ice cream bet that you would have with your sister.
I think, well, Reyes being an IT kind of person would, yes.
Would know.
Would know.
Maybe even could put one together.
Maybe.
And Laura Whitbeck, is this your own museum?
This is our Alicia's and my own gallery, the River Street Art Project.
And what we're doing is, this is our first artist talk. So we were planning on starting it in person, but from now on, artist talks will be a common for any of the artists exhibiting in the space here. We're going to be having an associated artist talk and an opening, but hopefully we'll be able to gather at some point.
Yeah, and
have an opening. But this is a great way. Thank you all for participating in our virtual forum here.
Yeah, and I do plan on doing. I mentioned that I had done one little mini walking tour. And I would like to do some others, pick some other locations to kind of focus in on and do that.
Are you planning? You're doing that this year? You think for extended Jane walks, or are you planning on doing it next year?
This year. Next year, I want to be onto it. I'll be onto a new project.
New project.
So yeah, to more fully answer the question about if this our space, our museum space here. So it is co-located with the barber shop.
I'm going to turn slowly so you can see that.
Make everyone nauseous. Okay. So there's a barber shop here, which is open during the day.
Christopher Cuts. I want to tell you, he does a wonderful job. And if you're a woman going to a barber, he cuts your hair as short as you want it to be cut, which is delightful.
Yes.
And also not common amongst barbers.
Right. So, and then next, so we own the building that we're in now. So the space we rent to the barber. Next door is a hair salon. Next door this way is Alicia's art studio.
Mm-hmm. Which used to be a barbershop.
Which used to be a barbershop.
Which is going to be...
Elmo's barbershop, and we're going to have a chair from Elmo's. Elmo's son is giving us a chair from Elmo's barbershop, which is going to be put in here.
Yes, and then we can record stories of people in North Adams telling their stories of North Adams, or maybe even telling stories of getting their hair cut in that very chair. So I'm very excited.
Right, and then we live upstairs, up there. Come visit.
Any other questions? We love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And check out the website. Check out our social media. Come get a haircut and check out the exhibit. And whenever the phase is that we can open
galleries again,
come visit for that too.
Right. Come have a barbecue donut.
Come have a barbecue donut. Thank you.